What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with the series I started in the last video. We are going through the history of Melodifestivalen but through the eyes of dance. So it's like dance history but solely connected to Melodifestivalen, Sweden's greatest entertainment show there has ever been. I hope you all are doing great. My name is ZaraTrixie and we are today going to be talking about the 70s in Melodifestivalen through the eyes of dance. If you haven't watched my previous video where we talk about the 1960s, that you stop this video right now and you go and watch that. I will link it somewhere up in the corner so you can go and watch that. So it's just for your own sake to be able to follow along and get the whole like chronologically way of the history. Why I am doing this series is because I am myself a professionally trained dancer and I've been working as a professional dancer for 10 years now, and on top of that I am a super mega Melodifestivalen nerd. It has sort of become my thing to track what is going on with the dancing part of Melodifestivalen, and I've sort of given myself the task of keeping the facts stored for generations to come. If you are new here, I would highly appreciate if you subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that I post. There are more to come. I will go through each and every decade of Melodifestivalen in each and every video, so there are a lot more coming up. I really appreciate it if you support me that way. And I just have to mention, for all my Swedish viewers out there, I will be doing like a shorter version of these videos in a local radio station in Sweden called P4 West. That radio show is airing every Friday at 7:15 in the morning, so it's the same premises really as these videos. We are going through one decade at a time and talking about the trends of dancing in Melodifestivalen, so it's a really good place to start off. It's sort of an introduction to what I will be talking in these videos, which will be the longer version and the international version because it's in English. I want to get started because I want to dive into the 1970s. I have so much to say. Like, if you know anything about Melodifestivalen or Eurovision for that matter, you know that in the 70s we had ABBA. But I will get to that later. To start off, I made a very interesting discovery when I did my research about the 70s compared to the 60s. So if you can watch my videos about the 60s, now is the time for you to
go and watch that.
Because I will draw reference to the 1960s now. You would think that in 1970 we would have come a lot further when it comes to performance, and yes, to a certain degree we have. In 1970s, what happened, like a huge trend that we saw, was that the groups started to enter. All of a sudden we went from having at maximum 2 artists performing an entry together, which was still very rare in the 1960s, but all of a sudden we have groups of mainly 4 persons performing, and yes, they start to dance a lot more. But the general thing I have to say about the 70s is that there were no dancers. The dancers as a separate performer, non-existing. So that's kind of sad, because in the 60s we did have dancers. Not so much in within the entries. There were at least dancers performing in interval acts. However, in the 70s there were no dancers anywhere to be found. Not even in the interval acts. The interval acts on the 70s followed one set of script. Look at our big orchestra here. Let's do a medley of different songs from Melodifestivalen. Mind-baffling, because in the 70s the stage itself grew bigger. There were more space. They didn't make any use of it. I just can't see how they didn't think that at least put some dancers in there, like, oh, can you come in here and dance to this song a little bit and then walk out and then the musicians can continue playing. Especially since the music itself in the 1970s evolved so much more into this pop music genre. That's still a mystery. I think also we have to consider the fact that the 70s in Melodifestivalen was cut short. It's the shortest decades of all in Melodifestivalen. Well, Sarah, a decade is always 10 years, and yes, that might be true, but if we talk about the decades of Melodifestivalen, the 1970s only had 8 years. There were only 8 shows. Because first of all, we didn't have a show in 1970, and that is because we were embarking on the train of canceling Eurovision because of the scandal that was occurring the year before in Eurovision Song Contest. If you don't don't remember, or if you didn't know, in 1969 there were 4 winners of Eurovision Song Contest, and there were no way for Eurovision to decide one winner like we do today. If there is an entry or more that ends up with the same points, there is a very detailed system of how we pick a winner. In 1969 there were no such rules because it hadn't even happened, and nobody thought about it, and a lot of countries thought that this was a scandal. There were many entries, many countries who choose to not participate the next year to stand their grounds. Fun fact, or not so fun fact, but fun fact in a way, it was said that 1970 would be the last year of Eurovision Song Contest because of this whole drama and many things. It was predicted that this would be the last year, and the production team made it very clear that we don't want to have this doomsday vibe going on in the show, so we don't talk about it. Like, it was very hush hush because they didn't wanna make it feel like it was a funeral for this show. So imagine what would have happened if they ended. My life would be so different. I would actually get a lot of work done. Just kidding. But luckily the contest continued on and made a return next year, and so did Sweden. But only a few years, because in 1976 we did not participate again. We were broke. In 74 ABBA won, and the year after we hosted the Eurovision Song Contest, and that made us broke. The whole thing with money situation in Eurovision at the time was very different from today, and it was actually because of, thanks to how you want to put it, that Sweden became broke, that they changed the rules where every country every year gives some money to the show to help the hosting country be able to have the economy to host it, because it became more and more expensive to host things like this. This is something that still lives on until today, and every country that participates in Eurovision have to pay a fee, and that fee will help the host be able to host it and make a great show for everybody. So that's why this decade is cut short, because we didn't participate in 1970 or 1976. Okay, now let's dive in. I have chosen 3 highlights, you may say, of this decade that I want to talk to you about. And yes, we are gonna start off with ABBA in 1974, because to be honest, the years prior in this decade, stuff happened, but nothing that changed the course of history, especially if you watch it through the eyes of dancers. For show and for performance in general, they really set a tone for what to come, and they truly changed a lot and made everybody realize the importance of show and choreography and performance, outfits, everything. The music as well, yes. The thing is, you can see even before 1974 the trend of groups have already entered in the competition. We had a group that won 2 years in a row called Family 4, and they also had this choreographed segments. Now we get some more lighting in here. Oh, this is gonna be really hard for me to edit later on. Wow, it's really bright right now. Great. I'm sorry, I have to fix this somehow. Now it's too dark instead. Why? I have to get back to you guys. I have to fix this. Okay, that's better. What was so special about ABBA's dancing? The concept of having 4 members, 2 females and 2 males, where the females are sort of the main singers or something like center. That is not new for this decade. But the thing is, they took that concept and they went with it. They set a new standard for this concept, and their performance, their choreography, there were nobody who had done it the way they did it. It was so perfectly choreographed, and they have practiced it, they know what to do, and they still show their own personalities within it. And it's also they are giving performance within their faces and how they portray. Now it's getting dark again. I can't with this lightning.
A few moments later.
I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm gonna look whatever happens now with the lightning. If you made it this far, please subscribe and help me. Okay, there was so much going on here with the lightning situation, so I totally lost track. But just know that ABBA, they changed the game. That brings me to the next highlight that I wanna make a deep dive into, and that is the year that followed, which is 1975. And the thing is, with all the shows from this point forward, I think at least you can see the whole shows on the Swedish national broadcaster, SVT, on their own streaming platform. So this is great. So go to their website if you want to watch the whole shows. So 1975, when I watched that show, there were so many entries. I was like, oh, this is good one. This is good. Like, I have my notes here, and there were so many that at the end of it, I was like, let's just do the whole year, because I can't pick just one. Like, the whole show elevated, and the performances, the entries elevated. Even though there were no dancers anywhere to be found still, but we had performers like Ted Gärdestad, one of my favorite Swedish artists of all time, competing with a song called Rocking and Reeling, and he was also giving a performance. Like, dancing is also about how you present yourself on stage, in my opinion, and he did that. And then you also have a very iconic, or like two iconic entries, and the first one was Michelangelo by Björn Skifs. He really gave a performance. You can really tell that the way to be an artist in the 70s in Melodifestivalen has changed compared to 1960s, where being an artist in Melodifestivalen in the 1960s were all about presenting yourself with grace. However, in the 70s, it's more like, okay, we are performers now. We have to give the audience something. We have to evoke some sort of emotion, and how we do that is not just to stand in one spot and sing our song. We have to really give more. To me, Björn Skifs, he is really giving a show. But there is another entry from this year that I absolutely love, and I love watching it because they have sort of found the same balance that ABBA did the previous year when it comes to having the choreographed segments but still letting personality show through. It's very clever how they selected the choreography. The entry I'm talking about is Bang and Boomerang. The artists were Svenne and Lotta. I love this performance so much. Everything from like their styling to their presence on stage, and also these choreographed segments. They were delightful. They were so perfectly chosen for this entry. This also, I think, elongated what ABBA had started the previous year. So there was so much going on this year. The winning entry of the year, I don't think had that big of an impact. It was Lasse Berghagen, Jenny, because I just have to mention that were the winner, which I don't feel like in performance it didn't deliver as much as the others. Back to the entry that came in the second place, which was Björn Skifs and Michelangelo. One thing that I have to just mention when it came to his performance, I don't know if this was rehearsed or not, but there is this moment where he gets down on one knee and starts singing, like standing on one knee. I hadn't seen anybody do something like that. To me, I think he broke some barriers when it came to performance and opening up how to perform. So 1975 were a super important show when it comes to performance, and how you for once realize the importance of a great show. An interesting side note to that, the jury that year, they were not allowed to see the entries, and that was actually addressed during the show. The host of the show actually pointed out that the juries, they can only hear the entries, so they will not be affected by the show. So that I think is super interesting, and also like, but what are you thinking now? It's like conflicting here. You want to make great shows because you want to have strong entries, but you're not letting the jury see that and taking that into consideration. The important thing is not, you can have the best show ever, you can have an amazing show, and yes, you will get some votes because of that, even if you have a shitty song, but it's a combination. You have to have the right song with the right entry and performance, and that is what makes a winning concept. As you can tell, 1975, a important year when it comes to dancing history of Melodifestivalen to me, and like the whole show itself. So it's such a shame that year we went broke, because we had this amazing show on our own, and then we hosted the Eurovision Song Contest, and then we were broke, and 1976 nowhere to be found. So yeah, it's a shame. And now it's super dark in here, and we are back to the start. The next entry I want to make a deep dive into is a song from 1977, Åh vilken sång, and the performance were Greta and Malou. First things first, this song at the time got super bad reviews. It was considered a overall bad entry, which for me, I can't see why. I think, in my opinion, it is the most 70s disco song of the decade in Melodifestivalen. So that alone to me makes it even harder to understand why it was so not well received. If we put ABBA aside, this is the best dancing entry of all. Even better actually than ABBA. If we only talking like choreography wise. This entry is super strong. Out of all of the entries in this decade, they have the most choreography and the most up-to-date choreography. I think this is a important entry in the evolution, even if it wasn't considered an important entry at the time, and I am so thankful that this entry exists. This entry could easily have had a couple of dances with them to just elevate this even more. Chasse, if it turns so much like jazz dance, jazz disco. Let's try and wrap this up before the lighting gets too dark. It will be a hell to edit this. 1970 were a very interesting decade. You would think that there were more dancing or dancers participating in this decade compared to 1960s, but it turns out that is not the case. There were more dancers in the 1960s. In overall, the dancing grew bigger during this decade within how the artists perform. And it also goes hand in hand with how you present your show, that you actually started thinking of it as a show and not just me standing here delivering my song to you. To me, when I think back to the general history of Melodifestivalen, there is a before ABBA and there is an after ABBA. That's like a key moment in Melodifestivalen history. Not only was it our first win, but the impact of that, you can still feel it today. From that point on, the dancing or performing part of every entry became more and more important. That was it for today. In the next video, we will be talking about the 80s, and I think that is a decade we are all very excited about. So if you still am watching and if you haven't subscribed, now is the time to do that, and also hit the notification bell, because I don't want for you to miss out on the next videos that I am going to post, because there is so much more coming up and it's only getting more and more exciting. So subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also leave a comment telling me what is your favorite entry from this decade. Let's have a conversation in the comment section. And with that, it's time for me to end this. Take care of yourselves and those you love. Bye!